What's up, my wizards? Dev from MTG coming to you from the lab today for these Kaladesh spoilers, and we got a ton of them today, actually. Not all of them are super impactful, but we did get to see a new Planeswalker, got to see a bunch of the stuff that's going to be in Planeswalker Packs, so let's take a look. Let me run through the stuff that's going to be in Planeswalker Packs first real quick. First of all, we got two tap lands here. They're both dual lands. One's red-white, the other is green-blue. That's pretty cool. Common level, tap duals, whatever. Moving on to some other stuff here. Let's look at the uncommons that are going to be in these Planeswalker Packs, and remember that all of these will be standard legal. First of all, there's Guardian of the Great Conduit Nissa's uncommon. It's 4 mana, 3 generic, and a green for a 2/4 elemental with reach. And as long as you control a Nissa Planeswalker, Guardian of the Great Conduit gets +2/+0 and has vigilance. So if you got a Nissa out, it's a 4/4 for 4 mana, and it has reach and a vigilance. So that's, not the worst stats in the world, but not the best card ever either. And then Chandra's uncommon is Renegade Firebrand, which I like the name of. It's 3 mana, 2 generic, and a red. I was going to say yellow for a 3/2 human warrior. As long as you control a Chandra Planeswalker, Renegade Firebrand gets +1/+0 and has first strike. So you get yourself a 4/2 first strike for 3 mana, which seems honestly kind of good, but again, just barely not standard playable. Let's look at the rares for these, and I'm purposely saving the commons in these for last because I think they're the most playable cards. Nissa's rare is Verdant Crescendo. It's 4 mana, 3 generic and a green for a sorcery. Search your library for a basic land card and put it onto the battlefield tapped. Search your library and graveyard for a card named Nissa, Nature's Artisan, and reveal it. Put it into your hand and then shuffle your library. Alright, so 4 mana is not great. To get a land onto the battlefield tapped, a basic land, by the way. It is cool that you get to search your library and your graveyard for the Nissa. I think that's kind of cool, but again, I don't think this is very standard playable at all. Chandra's rare is Liberating Combustion, which is also kind of a cool name. It's 5 mana, that's 4 generic and a red for a sorcery. Liberating Combustion deals 6 damage to target creature. You may search your library and or graveyard for a card named Chandra Pyrogenius, reveal it, put it into your hand, and if you search your library this way, you shuffle it. And now I don't know why they're slightly worded differently. You get to search your library and graveyard for the Planeswalker in question on both of these cards, but Chandra's is an and/or, and it has a different wording on the shuffles. I don't know why that is. But I also don't think this card is incredibly good at all. There's 6 damage to a creature, and go get your Chandra is okay, but it's just the specific Chandra that's not very good. So I'm not a huge fan. Now here's what I actually am a fan of, the 2 commons that got spoiled today. We got Nissa's is Terrain Elemental. It's 2 mana, a generic and a green, for just a 3/2 vanilla elemental. It doesn't have any abilities, but I still think it's one of the better cards in these Planeswalker packs. A 2 mana, easy to cast, 3 power guy is just not bad. You could do a lot worse than that. And then Flame Lash is 4 mana, that's 3 generic and a red for an instant. Flame Lash deals 4 damage to target creature or player, and this is easily my favorite card of the Planeswalker packs because it can also hit players. 4 mana for 4 damage to a creature ain't great. That's double a Grasp of Darkness, but when you let it hit players, and therefore Planeswalkers, by the way, the card gets much, much better. This is, again, easily my favorite card of the day, and I don't think it'll see standard play or anything, but who knows? I mean, if any of them are, it's probably this one, so I'm a fan. Let's get into the real Kaladeshi stuff here. This is Consuls Power. It's a white mana for an enchantment. Creatures your opponents control enter the battlefield tapped. And whenever a creature enters the battlefield under an opponent's control, you gain 1 life. I've seen the comment RIP aggro like a bunch of times because of this card, I'm not really sure about the creatures your opponent's control coming to play tapped, unless you're dealing with a lot of haste creatures and you're in control, you don't really care that much if their creature's coming to play tapped, unless they can swing immediately. Although if you're in a mid-range or an aggro shell yourself, you really care if their creature's coming to play tapped. This is a tempo piece in that case. Although in control, that other ability is incredible. If you're playing against aggro and this is in your board, this will come in almost certainly because you'll gain a life off of every creature they play, and that's really, really good. And this is also decent in Commander, especially against all the token strategies in Commander that try to play, they try to make 1,000,000 tokens on turn 2, So this seems okay against those two. And people are saying maybe Modern Soul Sisters sideboard. It's possible, it's possible. So the card has a lot of things it wants to do. I'm just not sure if it's going to do any of them, honestly. It looks really good, don't get me wrong. I think it probably will see sideboard play. And maybe you're getting way too big to sit on my leg. I think you're not a baby anymore. But I think it probably will see standard sideboard play. I'm just interested to see what it does other than that. Here's Bomat Courier, just 1 generic mana for a 1/1 artifact creature construct. And it has haste. We're just talking about creatures with haste. Whenever Bomat Courier attacks, exile the top card of your library face down. And you pay a red and discard your hand and sacrifice Courier. Put all cards exiled with Bomat Courier into their owner's hands. So this guy does a lot of stuff, and it's yet another piece for the red-white vehicles deck, you know. This seems really good in that. Oh, and I want to mention, before I move on, about Consuls Power, that last card we were talking about. It seems pretty good against vehicle decks also, specifically. Because those decks, vehicle decks like this, usually won't want to attack with their creatures when they come down, although it will play a couple of haste guys. What they're going to want to do is use the creatures they played that turn to crew their vehicles. And they won't be able to do that if their creatures come in to play tap. So that's the thing to think about with Consul's Power. But as far as this right here goes, I like it. It's like the best Raging Goblin like ever. Any deck can play it, although you'll obviously want to have red in your deck. But just 1 mana for a 1/1 haste is not terrible in some decks. It's not bad at all. And the ability is insane on this. Like, I guess the ability is really, really good in aggro. And it looks kind of non-assuming, you know. But this is actually kind of stacked. I'm just letting you know. Because there'll be times, you know, notice that it doesn't have to do combat damage, it just has to attack. So if it lives a couple of combat steps, you know, swings in and doesn't die or whatever, you'll be able to get a couple of cards off this. You can then stop swinging with it and just use it to crew stuff, you know. And then when you're done with it, you can then sacrifice it, discard your hand. Usually your hand's going to be 0 when you sacrifice this, and you draw a couple of cards, you know. The vehicle deck looks really good, honestly, at drawing cards. You know, it's got Depala for card advantage. It's got the Copter for drawing cards. It's got this for drawing cards. So that deck is actually looking really good. An aggro deck that goes really deep into the deck and sees a lot of cards. That's awesome. Don't fall, Igby. But you all right, buddy? But in any case, I am really jacked about not only this, but another card today for that vehicles deck. That deck is looking really, really seriously real, and this is a part of it. I'm definitely this goes in. And one more thing I should mention is that the discard your hand thing works pretty good in the color that we're probably going to be playing. Red, obviously, because there's madness in this format. So I just wanted to point that out too. Here's Scrap Heap Scrounger. He's 2 generic mana for a 3/2 artifact creature construct, and he can't block. Now, you can pay a generic and a black and exile another creature card from your graveyard to return Scrap Heap Scrounger from your graveyard to the battlefield. I like guys like this. I really like guys like this. Creatures that just keep coming and coming and coming, and you can't deal with them, you know. And if you just have to have 1 creature in your graveyard, you can bring this back. That seems like a pretty easy stipulation to fulfill. And he's a 3-power guy, so that's not... This card seems really good to me. Although, again, I'm not really sure how much play it sees. I'm not sure it'll find the shell that it needs to find. Although this looks super annoying and super solid. We'll have to wait and see. I'm not sure the card is at, like, the highest level. But I do think the card has been pushed, definitely. The card looks good. Hey, the graphics back. I'm going to run through some comments real quick that were not very inspiring, we'll say. And the reason I say that is to make a play on words, because this first card is Inspired Charge. It is a reprint. It was just in a set, actually. It's 4 mana, 2 generic, and 2 white for an instant. Target or creatures you control get +2/+1 until end of turn. It's not great at all. Salivating Gremlins is a 3 mana, 2/3, that's 2 generic and a red for a gremlin. And whenever an artifact enters the battlefield under your control, Salivating Gremlins get +2/+0 and gains trample until end of turn. That seems okay in limited. I don't think it's going to push standard like at all. Although this you know, it could be not terrible, you know, a deck that puts a few artifacts into play per turn. This gets pretty big, but I'm not seeing it really be a force. Ruinous Gremlin actually could see some sideboard play or even main deck play depending on what happens, but I doubt that. Ruinous Gremlin is just a 1 red mana, 1/1 Gremlin with 2 generic and a red, sacrifice Gremlin, destroy target artifact. Now, that could be pretty good in this format and will almost certainly be fantastic in the limited format especially. This is Maul Fist Squad. He's 4 mana, that's 3 generic and a black for a 3/1 human artificer with menace and fabricate 1, so that seems, again, okay in limited. And I'm just going to show the card for 3 more seconds so that you see it. It's not that interesting. Here's Whirler Virtuoso. It's 3 mana, that's 1 generic, a blue, and a red for a 2/3 Vidalcan Artificer with, when Whirler Virtuoso enters the battlefield, you get 3 energy counters. And you can pay 3 energy to create a 1/1 colorless Thopter artifact creature token with flying. This actually doesn't look horrible, again, especially in limited environments, you know. 3 mana or 3 energy to make a Thopter is a pretty good rate. Honestly, it's not bad. I mean, 6 energy to create a couple of 1/1 flyers, I'll take it. So I don't mind the card at all. I don't think it'll see any higher level play other than limited, but is at least decent in those formats. Speaking of limited playable uncommons, this is Aetherborn Marauder. He's 4 mana, that's 3 generic and a black for a 2/2 Aetherborn Rogue. He's got flying and lifelink. And when Aetherborn Marauder enters the battlefield, move any number of +1/+1 counters from other permanents you control onto Aetherborn Marauder. I actually don't want to talk about this card too much, although some people are saying, like, I'll play this in Commander. You know, maybe, who knows. But I'm just not really seeing it in any level of play other than limited, to be honest with you. Here's a rare, and it's a legendary creature. This is Padim, Consul of Innovation. He's 4 mana, that's 3 generic and a blue. We've seen 3 generic and a colored mana a lot today. He's a legendary creature, Vedalken Artificer, and he's a 1/4. And he's got artifacts you control have hexproof. And at the beginning of your upkeep, if you control the artifact with the highest converted mana cost, or tied for the highest converted mana cost, you draw a card. Maybe? That's all. I really don't have any other words for it. Like, maybe standard playable, I doubt it. All depends on what this format looks like. I do love that it gives your artifact creatures hexproof. That seems good, although they can just remove this dude, you know. Creatures that give all other things hexproof are not bad or anything. Like, they're technically good, but they're just easily removable. So there's that too. And if you control an artifact at the beginning of your upkeep and they don't, you know, you're guaranteed to draw a card. So that's good. And in a lot of cases, you're still going to draw a card. So I actually don't think the card is horrible, although it could be slightly priced out and is very, very removable. So I've got issues. You know, Grasp of Darkness take care of it very, very handily. So I'm just not 100% on it, though, and I'm talking specifically standard here. I think maybe Commander players could make use of this, but as far as standard goes, it remains to be seen, although I'm 50-50 on it. Let's get down to 2 of my favorite cards of the day, though. This is Inventor's Apprentice. It's just 1 red mana for a 1/2 Human Artificer with Inventor's Apprentice gets +1/+1 as long as you control an artifact. So I just want to say this real quick. I take it back about, like, Inventor's Goggles. I think that was the name of the card. I said that was maybe niche playable or whatever, and it was probably bad the other day. Actually, it's looking really good. The dwarf, the 1 mana white dwarf for the vehicles deck or the equipments deck, both decks really. He's an artificer. This is also an artificer. Stonehaven Outfit is an artificer, so those goggles are looking better every single day. So we can make this work, honestly, and this, I think, is the thing that tips that deck into our favor. We can finally actually make that deck and make it real. I really think this card is serious. And I know it doesn't look like much, but remember how the other day I said that 1 mana dwarf doesn't, you know, he doesn't survive against Liliana's +1. This does, even if you don't control the artifact. I think that might be super, extremely relevant, and there's a lot of, like, little things about this card like that that I like a lot. So, big fan, if you can't tell. I'm just really glad that we're finally seeing everything we need to see so that that deck comes together. But here's the big news of the day right here. It's a Planeswalker. This is Dovin Baan, Bane, who knows? I don't know why Wizards makes cards that they know are hard to pronounce on purpose. That's a shifty move. Just make cards that are easy to pronounce. Do it. It's not hard. Anyway, 4 mana. That's 2 generic, a white, and a blue for a 3 loyalty Planeswalker whose name is Dovin, which is just 1 letter off my name. You can +1 him, and until your next turn, up to 1 target creature gets -3, -0, and its activated abilities can't be activated. You can also -1 him to gain 2 life and draw a card. And his -7 is you get an emblem with your opponents can't untap more than 2 permanents during their untap step. So the number 1 complaint, I guess, that I keep hearing about this is that he's boring. He is just so boring. Like, I'm sorry, sometimes good cards are boring. And this is obviously a good card, or at least I think it's a good card. You know, as far as 4 mana Azorius Planeswalkers go, I think he's going to be more played than Narset was, almost certainly, because he just does good stuff, you know. His +1, you can just sit there and tick him up all game if that's what you want to do. But his +1 is really, really good, actually. We just saw, you know, the Baby Jace, the one that's leaving the format. When he flips over, his you know, first ability is insanely good, you know. -2 a creature until your next turn. That has been a fantastic ability. This is -3, and they can't do stuff like tap for abilities. You know, if they have mana abilities or, you know, artifact creatures that tap to do stuff, whatever. Just anything with an activated ability, you can't use it. That's more relevant than it appears to be. His -1 is great. First of all, it's a -1. This could have been a -2. Although they did give him a fairly low starting loyalty. That is a problem with the card. So a -2 would have been terrible there. But -1, that means you can do this 3 times. gain 2 life, draw a card. That means that if you do nothing else with him but -1 and kill him that way, then you can gain 6 life and draw 3 cards, which in a control deck, which is obviously what this wants to be in a control deck, gain 6, draw 3 is great. Like, that is really, really good. And I will talk about his ultimate for a second, because there's things, people are saying you'll never get his ultimate. I mean, we saw Lily ultimate like 3 times on camera at the Pro Tour Eldritch Moon. Like, you can ultimate Planeswalkers, guys. It happens. But this is basically a static orb, which doesn't win the game. Traditionally, when you look at Planeswalkers, you evaluate them in 3 different ways. And this is very important, newer players, by the way, just focus in on this. The way you evaluate Planeswalkers is, can it protect itself? Matter of fact, this one can, neg3, neg-0 until your next turn. So it takes out sometimes the biggest creature on their side of the board. And most creatures that are going to be played on the curve before this will be completely negated by its +1. So protection, yes. Card advantage. Yeah, obviously he does draw you cards. So there's that. Card advantage right there on the card. And the third thing usually is that its ultimate can win the game. That is not necessarily the case with Dovin Baan. That's his one sort of weak spot, except for his low starting loyalty. That is also not ideal. But in any case, that's how you look at a Planeswalker. And this guy does 2 out of 3 things, and the third thing isn't the most important, We always say when you look at a Planeswalker, its ultimate is the least important thing on the card. Really, the first 2 abilities are the most important because those are the ones you're going to be using all the time. And its first 2 abilities are very good on this card, especially in Control, Control wants to negate a creature from combat entirely, and Control wants to gain life, Control wants to draw cards, and Control wants to lock down the game, which his ultimate will do, by the way. And note that this is in the same standard and the same colors as Elder Deep Fiend, which these probably play pretty well together. That's all I'm going to say. So, a card does not look bad and may make Blue, White, or Esper Control a real honest-to-God thing again. Look at all the Planeswalkers we've got. By the way, in the Esper colors, we've got Jace, Unraveler of Secrets, Obnick, Silas, Sorin, Gideon, this, Liliana. Like, Esper Planeswalkers might be so faux shiz. Like, Esper Deploy the Gatewatch, possibly. Although in Deploy, I really want to run Oath of Nissa really, really bad. So, I like this card. I think it's got more than a few practical applications in the current standard, or what will be the current standard. So I'm a big fan, and I don't care if his abilities are boring. He looks really, really good, and that's what matters. And that's all the spoilers for today, at least so far. They'll probably do a little bit more later on tonight. So stay tuned, keep checking the channel and all that, check your notifications and your emails and stuff, because we'll probably put out another video if they spoil more cards. But it was an exciting day, We got to see yet another awesome aggro 1-drop, actually 2 awesome aggro 1-drops. We got to see a sweet new Planeswalker, all the Planeswalker Packs stuff, We got to see a blue legend that may be totally playable. A bunch of stuff we saw today. So let me know how you felt about all of these cards down there in the comments section, and then like the content if you like the content. Just don't do it if you didn't like the content. I want you to sincerely like it and hit the like button. But in any case, you can also share the video. Nobody does that, but you could. But in any case, sub if you're new, and I'll see you guys later. I'm Dev from SBMTG. Thanks for watching, my wizards.